My short film, Drifter, is a psychological thriller focused around hitchhiking. I have chosen this genre as the conversation that ensues between the two characters is unsettling, and so would be suited to the genre. I also want the film to create a reaction for my audience, as the film was made to bring awareness to the dangers of hitchhiking, and so, by choosing this genre, I believe I will get the appropriate responses to what my narrative is portraying. The psychological thriller genre is very well fitted for a hitchhiking film. The codes and conventions for the genre state that films that fall into this genre have low-level lighting and claustrophobic spaces. As the film is set entirely in a car, claustrophobia is at the forefront of the film. I chose to emphasize this by focusing my camera angles on those that pay attention to the characters, which would allow the audience to fully grasp the characters' motives and present the confined space the characters are in. Claustrophobia is incredibly important in my film, as I wanted to present the idea that Jason is trapped in the car with Lucy, putting forward instinctual fears of being prey, with Lucy being the predator of that scenario. I believe I did this successfully, and by making this a key focus point, my narrative has been strengthened. When creating my final edit, I decided to make the scenes considerably darker than they already were. I did this as I wanted to make the focus of the scene the characters, and so, by bringing out the shadows in the scene, I am able to ensure the audience's gaze is on them. By placing the characters in darkness, I am also presenting ideas of isolation, with the protagonist Jason being secluded from the outside world and being trapped in the car with Lucy. This allows for the themes of the piece to be amplified, as it allows me to direct the audience to what I want them to be seeing, thus making the narrative the driving point of the whole piece. My target audience for this piece would be students and young adults. I have chosen this as statistically, young adults have the highest rate of victims in relation to hitchhiking crimes. As this age range is the most susceptible to the risks of hitchhiking, the film would be directed at them, as the film would be beneficial to them and would hopefully bring about a prevention of hitchhiking-related incidents. The comp that inspired me the most to create Drifter was The Hitcher, 1986.
The moment you stop for The Hitcher.
The film was influential largely because of how the narrative shares common themes with my own film. The Hitcher explores themes of being trapped and having a menacing and unsettling tone, themes that are also present in my film. The editor of this film also chose shots where the performance is at its best. This works as it brings attention to the emotion of the scene, making the film more engaging for the audience. This theme in editing is something I adopted for my film, and I would argue makes my film more visually engaging for my audience, thus strengthening it greatly. To achieve this film, I had to implement several different editing techniques to get it to a finished product. I will discuss the different methods I took that made my film what it is, as well as showing different edits that were not suitable. The narrative follows a linear style of editing. I chose this style as by going for a non-linear style, I believe it would appear jarring to the audience and bring about confusion. My narrative has a clear beginning, middle, and end, and so by implementing a linear style of editing, I am able to present my three-part story act efficiently. When deciding upon how I would make the pacing of the narrative, I decided to go with a speed that would drive the narrative. This ultimately made me choose a slower pace. By implementing a slower pace of editing, I am able to ensure that the focus is on the characters as well as what they are discussing. The film is purely dialogue, and so by going for a faster pace of editing, the audience attention might shift as they focus on the editing of the piece instead of the focus, this being the dialogue between the two characters. If I was to go for the faster pace when choosing my cuts, it could also appear unnatural and not suitable. I will now present you with two different edits of the final scene, with different pacing.
Bet I can guess why you and your ex split up. Bet it was because she didn't satisfy you. I could satisfy you, Jason.
No, I'm alright actually.
Come on. Mother's here now. Bet I know why you and your girlfriend split up. Bet it was because she didn't satisfy you. You know, I could satisfy you, Jason.
No, I'm alright actually.
Come on. Mother's here now.
The first edit was how I originally wanted the pacing to be. This was due to how if an editor is trying to emphasize a tense atmosphere, he would add more cuts to make the scene appear more uneasy to the audience. This works for my piece, but due to different performances, I went with the second edit as it focuses on one shot. This is an editing style adopted by Anne Vos Coates, who compares herself to an actor's editor. Adopting Coates' editing style works in my favour, as by keeping it to one shot with no cuts, the audience is able to soak in the actress's performance and better understand the emotion of the scene, which arguably is lost when transitioning between shots to the extent the first edit does. Throughout the entirety of the film, I decided to focus on shots where one of the characters are the main focus. My main reason for this was I was trying to make the scene appear claustrophobic. The two shot didn't fit in with this theme, as it appears too wide and presents a significant gap between the two characters. By focusing on the two alternating shots, I am able to make the setting appear smaller than it is, as the characters appear closer than they are, thus providing a claustrophobic atmosphere. My aim was to make Jason appear trapped, and by making the two shot the main focus, this aim would be lost. This is the spacing that I went with for my final edit. This works, as by having Lucy command most of the screen, it gives the impression that Jason is cornered, being trapped, with nowhere to run. This is a shot that shares similarity to one in my main comp, The Hitcher. As you can see, both scenes work well in presenting a tense and claustrophobic atmosphere, enforcing the themes and ideas of both films well. The spacing in this edit doesn't give the same effect, as it presents the scene as being more open, thus giving less of an impression of Jason being trapped than in the edit before. This is why I chose to go for this edit, as it enforces the themes of the narrative and fits in with the codes and conventions of a psychological thriller. Upon reviewing the footage after production had concluded, it was clear to me that I had to fix the footage. This was largely due to how the framing of the two alternating shots were meant to be symmetrical, but this was not the case. I knew I had to change this as the eye line was not level, and so the audience's gaze would have to shift, and I did not want this to happen. This meant that I had to increase the scale of the film and shift it downwards, as so to make it match the other shot. To make sure this worked, I also had to implement black bars at the top and bottom of the screen. This editing decision worked well for my scene, as it allowed me to fix my footage whilst adding the benefit of making the film appear more cinematic. I will now show you the progression of shots, but without editing the shots.
So, where you headed?
Not far, just neath of that.
Oh, right, yeah, I'm on my way to Cardiff, so it's no problem.
Sweet.
Are you in university?
Yeah, first year.
Ah, right. Enjoying yourself?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Not everything you thought it would be, or?
Yeah, you could say that. What about you?
What am I a student?
No, like, what'd you do for work?
All right. I'm a lawyer.
Oh, got me smart for that.
No, not really. So, where you headed?
Not far, just Neath. That's right.
All right, yeah, I'm on my way to Cardiff, so it's no problem.
Sweet.
Are you in university?
Yeah, first year.
All right. Enjoying yourself?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Not everything you thought it would be, or?
Yeah, you could say that. What about you?
What am I a student?
No, like, what'd you do for work?
All right. I'm a lawyer.
Oh, got me smart for that.
No, not really.
As you can see, it was the right decision to edit the shots, as it allowed for the film to appear symmetrical, which works very well in my favour. When deciding upon the progression of shots, I wanted them to transition in a fluid manner and appear almost invisible. I chose to do this as by transitioning to a shot abruptly, it would be jarring to the viewer and would distract from the narrative. This is why, in the final edit of the film, there are limited transitions with less than 3 cuts on average per minute. By limiting the shots, I am able to allow my sequence of shots to flow fluently, while avoiding exasperating the audience. I will now show you 2 different styles of editing.
Are you a student, or?
Oh, yeah, first year.
All right, okay. Enjoying yourself?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Not all is cracked up to be, eh?
Yeah, you could say that. What about you?
What am I a student?
No, like, what'd you do for work?
All right. I'm a lawyer.
Oh, got me smart for that one.
Not really, no. Are you in university?
Yeah, first year.
All right. Enjoying yourself?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Not everything you thought it would be, or?
Yeah, you could say that. What about you?
What am I a student?
No, like, what'd you do for work?
All right. I'm a lawyer.
Oh, got me smart for that.
No, not really.
This was an edit I did that was focused on having several cuts in it. I initially edited the scene this way, as I wanted to make the film appear more dynamic, and so, by having several cuts in the scene, I felt I achieved this. Upon reviewing it, however, I chose to limit the cuts, as so to ensure the focus was on the narrative, and not on the edit. As my film is a psychological thriller and consists purely of dialogue, it was important that I ensured that emotion was the driving force whilst making my decisions in my editing. The emotion of the scene stems purely from the actors, and so I intentionally prioritize the alternating shots of when each character is the focus. By doing this, I am ensuring that the emotion portrayed is clearly presented as the audience's gaze is solely on the characters and nothing else. I chose to focus the camera on Jason during the beginning and middle acts, as it was important that I showed Jason's progression from being comfortable to uncomfortable. The final act is where I change the focus to Lucy, as her character changes the most, and so by placing her as the focus in the sequence, I am able to ensure that the scene is as tense and uncomfortable as possible. If I was to use a 2-shot for the final act, the effect I was going for is ruined. This is because, although we can see both characters and the emotions they are experiencing, by focusing on both of them, we aren't able to feel the claustrophobic and menacing presence that Lucy gives off that is ever present in the edits I chose for my final edit. A technique that I used to bring about a sense of fluidity in my sequence was to cut to shots where a visual cue is present. I've implemented this as it is a trope used when editing together a conversation and thus is an expected cut. Our eyes trace the characters, and so by cutting the scene when they look at the other, it allows for a somewhat invisible cut, removing any chance of the cut appearing forced or out of place. In the first act of my narrative, I used this editing technique.
Not everything you thought it would be, or?
Yeah, you could say that. What about you?
What am I a student?
No, like, what'd you do for work?
All right. I'm a lawyer.
Oh, got me smart for that.
No, not really. What are you doing out at this time of night anyway?
As you can see, this scene flows well, as I use the character's actions and responses to allow myself to decide upon when to cut. I will show you an example of where I chose not to do this.
Cheers for giving me a lift.
Oh, no problem. Oh, my name's Lucy, by the way.
Jason.
All right. Where are you heading, Jason?
Not far, just need if that's alright.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm on my way to Cardiff.
Sweet.
So, are you at university, or?
Yeah, first year.
All right. You enjoying yourself?
Yeah, I suppose so.
What? Not what you thought it would be, or?
Yeah, you could say that.
As you can see, it is not as effective without using visual cues, as it makes the scene appear a lot blander, and not as visually interesting as the style present in my final edit. Due to differing performances, I had to implement sound editing into my film. A key example of this would be the start of the final act. The narrative demanded that the car came to a halt when the conversation's tone changed, but the footage did not provide me with a clear instance of this happening. As there was no visual evidence that the car had come to a halt, I had to adapt to this and use sound to signify this occurring. I did this by adding a running track in the background of a car engine, and as the conversation shifted, I faded the audio out.
It's no dating life. I haven't dated anyone in over a year.
Right. Do you want to know why I split up with my husband?
Sure.
That was because she didn't satisfy you. You know, I could satisfy you, Jason.
No, I'm alright actually.
This worked in my favour as it gave a sense of continuity by using the audio track to sync the shots together. By fading it out, I made it clear that the car had stopped, and so allowed for the narrative to continue fluently. I will now show you the raw footage without any sound editing.
It's no dating life. I haven't dated anyone in over a year.
Right. Do you want to know why I split up with my husband?
Sure.
That was because she didn't satisfy you. You know, I could satisfy you, Jason.
No, I'm alright actually.
As you can see, the raw footage alone was not suitable for the edit, as it appears odd that the character leans over without the car coming to a halt. By implementing the backing track and then having it fade out, I have been able to fix this problem. As Walter Murch said, every film is a puzzle really, from an editorial point of view. This quote resonates with editing, and also with this film, as there were issues present when editing this film, and I believe, through overcoming them, I have created a quality final film.